Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Joss Duncan, and I'm the host for the Love Story Exchange. This is Love Now Media's interactive game show where people sit in a hot seat and tell a story about love. We are in Love Now Media's 5th day of 11 days of love stories, and we've been telling love stories all around the city of Philadelphia. So today we have some awesome people joining us, and if you're tuned in and you love love, this is the place to be. So we're gonna get our Love Story Exchange started. Can we just give our audience a round of applause? We're gonna kick it off with the phenomenal Lois Moses. Yes, come on up, yeah. Lois, come on up here. Now, I would like for Lois to choose a number between 1 and 11.
I'm gonna go with my birthday.
Whoa.
7.
Number 7.
Okay, the question is, your first crush or the first time you fell in love? Oh, well, I'm married, so I think we're gonna have to start at that. Oh, this is hard. It's really, I guess, the first time I would say really fell in love, I had a friend who told me about, I was in law school, and a friend of mine told me about a meeting, that there were 35 or 40 men coming to this meeting. It was friends of his from college and so on. So I called my girlfriend and I said, you know, there are 35 or 40 eligible professional men coming to, and he will remain nameless, his house this weekend. So of course we got all dressed up, all cute and powdered up, and went over there, and we were actually the only women in the place.
Wow.
And so there was this gentleman standing over, holding court with these men, and there was something about him that just drew me to him. And I didn't know who he was, I didn't know his name, but I know that I went home and I fell asleep. And I was thinking about him actually all night long, and we were kind of exchanging glances, and I went home and I dreamt, somehow he ended up in my dream, and in my dream he asked me, would I marry him? And I screamed yes so loud that I woke myself out of my dream. I mean, honest to God. So, and the next day, well, they had meetings the next day, so I know Sunday was sort of the last day. So I called up my friend and I said, oh, you know, I wanted to come over. I wanted to see if anyone was awake. I was going to come over and make waffles for the crew. Now, I'm calling to make waffles for 35 to 40 men, okay? And he said, oh, well, you know, some of us are awake, some have left, and so on. I said, well, who left? And he said, well, my friend from Michigan. And so I said, you know what? You all go back to sleep. I think you need some rest. Because I knew at that point that the one that I was interested in had left. So, but strangely enough, after that, a couple months later, he asked about me, I guess I asked about him, and I got a call on my machine. I was actually seeing someone else, and we were studying for law school finals, and I heard the message on the machine. I told the person I was seeing while we were studying for finals, I said, you know what, you need to pack your bag. I'm taking you to the train, and when you leave, this relationship is over. And I hadn't even spoken to my husband at that point. And sure enough, little by little, but I knew at that point, when you say the first time you fell in love, I knew it at that point, it was energy, it was bigger than me. And we talked, and after that, we have never been apart. Since then, that was 20 years ago. So.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Can we give Lois a round of applause?
Thank you, love.
Thank you. That is awesome. It's almost like love at first sight. You know, it's just like I saw him, I knew it, I dreamed it. That's awesome. So, yes, we'll see if we get any more juicy stories like that one. So, yeah, I mean, let's see who we have coming up next. I think we have Grace. Grace, come on up. Woo! Grace, choose a number between 1 and 11.
What's my lucky number?
Number 4.
Describe the moment when you realized you were completely in love. I've only been in love once with someone that's not like my parents. And I think it's in the moments where you're sitting there and your happiness is second to their happiness. You know, like you're spending time with someone and you're like, I want to do something for them and it's not for me. And I think we're all very just inherently selfish. Like you always look for yourself. You come first. It's survival. And then whenever you're starting to pay attention to another human being, another person, I think that's love. I fell in love with my high school boyfriend, my first, and like, yeah, it was my first love. And it was a very good relationship, I would say. It was good until it wasn't. And yeah, at one point I was like, I'm happy, but is he happy? And how do I make him happy? And that's when I was like, I think I'm in love.
So what was that moment like for you? Like, were you cooking waffles or tying your shoes or were you walking in the park? What was the moment like?
So I went to a boarding school for my junior and senior year of high school, and I dated him during my junior year. And I think so. My dorms were gender separated, so there was a boys' dorm and a girls' dorm. They were 5 minutes apart, and it was raining really hard, and he was walking me back to my dorm, and at that moment I was like he's gonna have to walk alone in the rain. Like, I don't know, it felt weird to me because I was like, I kind of feel bad. Like, I want him to be like, have someone to walk him home to, I guess. And that's when I was like, dang, I love this boy. And then I was like, oh God, I love this boy. But yeah, it's pretty nice.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, Grace, thank
Yeah, I'm
you.
comfortable.
Thank you. Love that moment when you're just like, I feel something different than I've ever felt before. Yeah, sometimes that's love. Sometimes it's something else, but sometimes it's love. Yeah, so let's see who we have next up. I have my little list here. We have Kim. Come on to the stage. Kim, choose a number between 1 and 11. Six.
So number 6. My question is, do you believe in unconditional love? Why or why not? Oh, that's a hard one.
You can pass if it's too hard. Pass or play.
Pass or play? Let's play.
Okay.
I believe that you can love someone no matter what, but I don't believe that it's unconditional. I feel like we all have conditions because we have standards, so we want people to live by our standards. And you may not want to compromise on certain things, but it doesn't necessarily change the way you may feel about someone. So that kind of falls into like a dangerous zone, like that love that's probably not that good for you because that person's probably not doing the best by you, but you just can't help how you feel. So it's not necessarily unconditional, I don't believe, but there's no limit, I would say, on how you feel about that person.
So can you tell us about a time when you realized that? So when did you feel yourself acknowledging like, whoa, my love has conditions?
I think it matures through time. So I think, maybe if you've been in a relationship a few times, maybe in the beginning stages, like your first love or your second love, you may allow things to happen and play out over and over again. I think we learn lessons the hard way, so we don't really, we we go through some of the same things until we finally learn the lesson, is what I feel like I've learned, and I'm still learning right now. So if I find myself in the same type of patterns, it's because I haven't yet learned my lesson that I'm supposed to be learning. So I think I am now stepping into myself and learning how to say no. That's not what I'm going for. So either you are going to live up to my standards, or we just, we can't do this. So I'm learning that now.
Give us an example.
Like example, I'm like currently going through a breakup. So, and it's because it's like, no, like we can't do that. And it doesn't, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I love him. So I still love him. I'm going to continue to love him, but I know that I can't let the love harm me, is almost what it's starting to feel like. Like if it's feel like it's hurting more to hold on than it is to just, let go. I'm now learning that I have to let go, because before it was like, you got to do this, basically be the ride or die. So you got to be the ride or die, like we going through thick and thin, but it's like, okay, no, I can't do this. So somebody got to change. So that's what I'm learning right now. And it's not easy. It's hard because the love is there. But so that's why I feel like it's not necessarily unconditional, but there is no limit on how you may feel about that person, just feeling wise. But standard wise, love is not unconditional, is how I feel in the end.
Wow, thank you. Yeah. Okay. These are like really deep questions. I'm interested in knowing like what the people who are watching may be thinking about, like, unconditional love, your first love. Like, what does it invoke in you? Like, I wonder if you can tweet us or write us a message on social media. We're at Love Now Media, or on Twitter at Love Now Media. Let us know what you're thinking. Is love conditional? Is it not? What was your first love like? When did you realize you were in love? These are all interesting things that I think the public is probably wanting to answer as well. So let's move on to our next storyteller. We have Alfredo. Alfredo, choose a number between 1 and 11. Wow, number 11.
Okay. When was the last time you witnessed an act of love? Honestly, earlier today. It was really sweet. I was chilling at the park. I was meeting a friend of mine. My friend had thought of me and was like, I'm going to bring my man's a smoothie. But on her way to the park, she bumped into someone and the smoothie got all over her. And I was like, damn. But yeah, that was the last time I had seen an act of love.
Oh, because she was bringing a smoothie.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, on such a hot day,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Alfredo, that was a good story, but it was short.
Yes, it was.
I want you to choose another number.
Oh.
Yeah, let's give it up for Alfredo to choose another number.
Let's go for
Number 8.
Okay. How did you learn the definition of love? I mean, ultimately experience through various modes of love, I guess. You have a parental love. You also have very romantic love. You have love from very close friends. So I guess being on the receiving end and being able to pick out components that was very archetypal, so to speak, between each one of them was how I started to understand my idea of love.
So can you break it down for us?
Okay.
Parental, friends.
All right. I mean, there's just something, I don't want to say you put someone above you, but there's like I think of you just as much as I think about myself.
Tell
right?
us about when it happened.
Ooh. When doesn't it happen?
Dude,
I
whoa.
guess, specifically.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's happened happened all my life. I can't really pinpoint something specific.
Okay.
Yeah. Yourself?
Who, me?
Yeah. Have you felt this before
Oh,
or seen
yeah,
it?
I felt all this stuff. That's why I'm the host of today's
Oh,
show.
okay. Oh, wonderful. Hey, well, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. Let's give it up for Alfredo. Sure, I could do a whole hour of talking about, my love stories. But that's not what we're here for today. So we're going to listen to another awesome storyteller, Mr. Dave Taruso. Dave.
Picking the number.
Pick a number between 1 and 11.
Finding the one.
Whoa.
Important to love.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Did you ever do something for love that made you feel completely insane? Yes, a lot. It would be easier to ask me, did you ever do something for love that made you feel completely sane? I'm like, okay, there's probably 4 of those things. Most of the other things I've done make me feel crazy. Man, this is hard to narrow down. Something that made me feel completely insane. Yeah, I can't. There's a lot of things. I'm trying to grab something in my head and focus on one thing that made me feel insane.
Or it could be multiple things if you want to tell us about a few.
I've had some very challenging relationships that were, dealing with, like a recent death of the boyfriend before me. That was my first relationship, so that was like sort of advanced calculus. Like I didn't start out with 2 + 2. It was, on the 1-year anniversary of his death, like sitting on the couch with her while she just cried about it. And that taught me a lot about love. I think I got a really advanced kind of feel for it then, because there's something, I was 19. Your first love is usually kind of innocent. It should be fun. And this one was about grief. It was about, like that moment is something where you are, that's love to me, to when it's not about you, it's not about what this person is doing for you. It was specifically about someone else. But I was trying to be there for her, so I felt like I must love this person to not be like selfish and say, I don't want to go cry about your ex on your own. You know what I mean? Like that it was about taking care of that person. And I that's something I learned from my parents. It's just their love has always been selfless for me. They've always put me first. So I had that example in my head. And when I don't get that from someone else, I see it right away, and it's very toxic.
Wow. So did you feel crazy? Like you felt like you were insane when you were in that moment, or?
I felt like it was, I guess insane is a hard word to say, but it was more like surreal, that it felt surreal, that it was bizarre for me to be upset for her that she was missing this other guy. 'Cause I'm an Italian guy from South Philly, and I'm about as jealous as you can get. And that first relationship, there was a lot of jealousy. I've had a lot of jealousy in all of my relationships, and that was such a non-jealous moment for me, where I felt bad for her. I was wishing the guy was still around, because that would have made her happy. We might not have been together, but she would have been happier that way, for sure. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. This is awesome. Yeah, let's give it up for Dave. So, Dave, while you're in the hot seat,
Yeah.
I want to keep you in the hot seat.
Want my one?
Yeah, I like your one, please. Is there anyone from the audience who has a question about love that they would like to ask Dave? And then we're going to bring you guys back up in reverse. Anyone from the audience have any question about love? It can be silly or deep. Yeah, Grace.
Do you think that lost love stunted your girlfriend's love? Do you think she can love as deeply as she did before, or did that loss really affect her potential to love?
So Grace wants to know if Dave's girlfriend was affected by this, and if it affected her ability to love him back, or in the future?
Just in general.
Okay.
I don't think so. She was a very loving person. I think that, you know, losing someone you love either to death or to, you know, the relationship ending, it creates a level of fear, and that can cloud your love, but I don't think it will take that away. I've had relationships where, you know, I had a relationship with a girl who was suicidal, and I thought if I do the wrong thing, if I set her off, that I'm going to be the cause of her death. And that fear clouds your love in a way, because a lot of the decisions I made in my own actions toward her or towards other people were based in fear, not on love. But the love itself wasn't any less potent. It was, if in anything, it sort of was more powerful because there was so much at stake. You know, I think in general, yeah, when you act from fear, that you're not acting from a place of love, but that doesn't mean the love isn't there. And I know, you know, she's still able to love and have a relationship for sure. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah. So one last question for you, Dave. How do you love? How do you love yourself? Like, how do you express love in the world?
I think what Grace said very much mirrors what I think. It's love is putting someone before you in any way. It's, you know, there's the last cookie and it's your favorite cookie, but you give it to the other person or something like that. And I've, you know, a lot of people associate love with like, oh, it's this warm, gushy feeling. And I had a girlfriend like that who swore she loved me, but never ever, I could point to 0 things where she ever put me before her. So in the end, I left thinking she was never in love with me. You know, it's always going to be an action. It is not a feeling. It's an action. It has to express itself in some way. Otherwise, it's intellectual, and love is not. It's emotional.
Great. Thank you, Dave. Yeah, let's give it up for Dave. Woo! Okay, let's go in reverse. Alfredo, you want to come back up? Anyone have a question for Alfredo? If not, I'll go. Okay.
How many times do you think you've been in love?
How many times do you think you've been in love?
I think, so it kind of went in stages, you know. First time I felt or experienced romance was very much 15, you know, very tender age. But it was like my first infatuation. It was my first like feeling of emotion and intense, like, I'm so like, I can't be around, I can't be without her. When, you know, parents are colliding and it's like, no, you know, it's this beautiful little love story that I made up in my head, and it was very tunnel visioned, right? And then around like 19, I had met someone else. I definitely fell into a deep emotional relationship with them. And things were very trifling, I guess, but what I appreciated the most was the amount of change that took place, you know. And even though she and I are very different people, they're still like, I love you, but I don't love you, but I love you, you know. And then my most recent situation was real cool. She was an artist, and she went away for a really long time, and we were able to part ways in a very settled fashion that was like, I love you. Go with peace. I'm gonna go this way, and you know, it'll be nice. So I'm gonna say 3. Yeah, definitely.
That's an amazing number, 3. you
3.
know.
It's a magical
All
number.
good things happen in 3s,
Hopefully it'll
right?
go higher.
Oh,
but we'll
okay.
see. You know, I think it's wonderful to just experience all that like
Yeah.
deep emotion. It's fun, you know.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Let's give it up for Alfredo. Okay, we have Kim. Kim, back in the hot seat. Who has a question for Kim? Alfredo.
Did you love your first kiss?
Did you love your first kiss?
I don't know. I think I did, because my first kiss was very, very young. Like little kid young. So I would say he was my very first boyfriend, although like we shouldn't have boyfriends that little. But our parents really put us together. I think they thought we were going to grow up and like be this couple. So yeah, I remember
It was an
we just-
arranged boyfriend
Right.
at 7 years old.
Yeah, at 3 years old.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I don't think that was our first kiss, but from like when we was very little, because we was next door neighbors, like, and we grew up together, so they just always thought that we were going to, you know, grow up and be some couple, my mom still be like, "Oh yeah, that's my, son-in-law." I'm like, "No, like it's never going to happen." Like we can't even get along for more than like I think probably 5 minutes before we start arguing. And then I might just go a long period of time without speaking to him, and then we'll come back together and be cool for like another 5 minutes. So,
Do you love him?
yeah, as a friend, yeah, I love him as a friend. But it's just not gonna happen. So they really tried, but no arranged marriages for this girl. But yeah, we kissed when we were very young, probably like around 5, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you, Kim. Grace, want to come back up in the hot seat?
Here I am.
Yeah. Okay. Who has a question for Grace?
What are some sacred things that you do to sustain a love connection?
What are some sacred things you do to sustain a love connection?
Can this be about self-love? Awesome. I think self-love, especially when you're young, is one of the most important loves. Just so you have that foundation, I believe that you have to love yourself before you love someone else, because it just makes it a lot safer for you and the other person. And for me, I've always kind of loved myself. I'm an only child. My parents really made sure that they knew that I knew that I should love myself. And even now, I think when things are getting tough or I'm just not in a good mental state, it's really important for me to take a step back and really look at the people who love me and be like, that's really sacred to me, just to reassure myself that I'm worthy of love and that love is always there for me. And if so many people can love me, my family, my friends, if they're there for me, then I can love myself. And it could be just like sitting in front of the mirror and just like thinking, or like, I don't know, there's some like sacred rituals, I guess. It's very
Do you want to share one of those?
2018 rituals, just kind of like, it's like playing my favorite song and sitting in front of like my little vanity and just doing like my hair or my makeup. It's just, you're paying attention to yourself and no one can disturb you then. And it's like, you're really reminding yourself or giving yourself reasons to love yourself. And I think it's a very good moment to have on your own.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Lois, welcome back to the hot seat.
Back in the hot seat.
Does anyone have a question for Lois? Dave.
Is there any relationship that you modeled your healthy relationship after, or now that you still look at and go, that's the one I like to aim for that?
Is there any relationship you modeled your healthy relationship after?
Absolutely. Sorry, Mom, and all of my aunts. But what we did, and actually that's really interesting because he had an aunt and uncle that have been married for, since they were maybe 18 and 20, because we really searched out. The first conversation we had was about Black love. And it was an 8-hour conversation. It was so ridiculous. His friend, who is our joint friend, called me and told me that he called him afterwards and said that he had to wring out his shirt that he had on. The conversation was so profound, but it was really about how do you establish a healthy relationship. And we also, because we started a school together and we started looking for models. And it's interesting because most of the couples that we modeled were couples who had been together for, I would say, 40 plus years. So we found 3 couples that were, they were all professional couples. They had been together since college, and how they distributed not only relationship but the respect they had for each other. Because I learned 3 things throughout it, and that is good morning, I love you, and I apologize when I'm wrong. So those are the 3 tenets that I live by in my relationship. Every morning, the first thing we say is good morning, and we kiss and say I love you. And that is a consistent, I would say, for the last 15, 16 years. since we got married. That is, and it's worked for me. But that's a fabulous question because it really was about models. Because we didn't
what
have
were some
any.
other elements in the models? So you kiss, you say good morning, you
Well, yeah.
apologize. What else is
Well,
there?
they spent an inordinate amount of time together doing things that they both cared about. They were involved in organizations, nonprofit. In fact, two of the couples were on our board. And when we ran the school and also ran a community center. So watching them work together in partnership, as well as they were very strongly supportive of family. In fact, one of them had raised several other children in the family. So watching them, create these systems around doing positive things, like you said, outside of themselves that were about being bigger. It was bigger than that's just them. It was about community. It was about family. It was about being a stand for other people and things that made a difference in the world. And so that became, and that's how really, because what we realized is that I'm an artist and he's an academician. And so what we found was that we had the same, I don't like ideology, but we had the same vision of how we wanted, and our vision is a world that works for everyone. I mean, no kidding. That's the model from which we live. And so we both had that foundation. We come about it a little differently, but getting there is really about creating a world that works for everyone. So I hope that answered the question.
Awesome, yeah.
And I still love you, sweetie. Even more every day, actually.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you, Lois. Guys, so this is it for today's episode of the Love Story Exchange. I'm excited to be closing out the show. I want to just tell anyone who's out there watching who finds this interesting to think about doing a love story exchange in your own home, maybe in your own community. It's very simple. You just take a card, put out some questions about love or some prompts, something that gets people thinking about love, write a number on the back, and then you just have people kind of choose. It's a way to keep people engaged. It makes it fun, but it also brings people together so that they're talking about love, thinking about maybe things they've never had the time to talk about. We talk about the weather, we talk about politics, we talk about what Beyonce was wearing and what her twins look like, but when do we just sit around talking about love? So if you're watching, take some time to think about love, talk about love with your families and your communities. It's actually a lot more fun than you might think it is. So thank you so much for watching today. Again, you can follow us on all social media platforms at Love Now Media, and our website is lovenowmedia.com. We're so happy you were here. Thanks to all the studio audience. Yay! And thanks to Philly Cam.